I'm saving my biggest theme for last, for sure. Hey everyone, hi, welcome or welcome back to my channel. Today I am back with you talking about One Piece. I have missed you all. It has been a minute. So I'm here to talk about the Little Garden arc. I will give you maybe a little catch up of what's been going down between me and One Piece, and yeah, I guess that's it. I don't know if I really have any other kind of rambling on, but the Little Garden arc starts I think it starts on chapter 115 and it goes all the way through 129. So, you know, I'm excited to talk about with you as I'm always excited to talk about you, and there's always chaos, so you could probably hear my dog barking right now. I don't know. So if you're new to my channel, then hi, welcome. I am Shelly, and I really love reading of all kinds. All kinds of formats and genres. I am just a huge reader and love to talk about it. I think that's probably the key thing, is that I love to talk about what I'm reading, and I try and be thoughtful about it. So if you like the vibe and you want to hear me talk more about what I'm reading, I would encourage you to subscribe, stick around, and without any further rambling on, let's go ahead and get into the meat of this video. Okay, so since I last talked to you all, I have done a video with my boys on One Piece. I have read a bunch of other manga series. I've just been busy. I've been busy not reading One Piece, okay? Which I have feelings about, and I'll get into that in a moment. The response of my boys and I watching One Piece was really fun and really positive, as I thought it was going to be. The internet has been a really kind place for me thus far, which has been so awesome and cool and gracious, and it's made me really enjoy what I do on here. Let me think, what was I gonna say? Oh, there was a lot of people warning me, saying that One Piece is a bit too adult, or like it's for a little bit older of an age group than my boys, and, you know, giving me some advice, I think, for lack of a better term, about watching One Piece with my boys. And I wanted to say that, you know, I know. I mean, like, I already know that, and I know I don't want to watch One Piece with my boys quite yet. I do think that they need to be a little bit older. And, you know, I don't know if, I just sort of made that video on a whim, and it was really fun. And I kind of previewed the world of One Piece, and I had gotten the idea that it was just talking about the geography of the area. And I thought that would be safe to show my kids, you know. It wasn't going to be like this emotional or dark or twisted thing. So I had gotten a lot of feedback about, you know, maybe saying my kids were too young, and I had already thought about it, you know. I'd already went over that in my own mind, though I do appreciate y'all looking out for me. So, you know, rest assured, it was kind of a one-time thing. They've actually I've made like 600 videos, or I don't know, I've made a lot of videos, videos and shorts, and they've never actually been like a chatting, we've never chatted together. With me and my boys have never chatted to the camera together. They'll pass by, they'll show up, but we've never had like a sit-down conversation to the camera. So that was kind of like their premiere, and maybe their like cameo, like their one-time cameo on my channel. I don't know if it'll be a thing. And then let me think. Oh, in terms of the last arc that I read, y'all really love Calvin and Hobbes, and guess what? I do too. It's just a huge passion of mine that I've had for years and years. And to make the connection that the humor between One Piece and Calvin and Hobbes is similar has really kind of helped situate at least the humor side of One Piece in like it's in my knowledge of reading, you know. So that was good. And I loved really going on and on about it. I just love Calvin and Hobbes. I really ought to reread it. And maybe share like its importance to me with y'all at some point. So there was that. I don't know what else. I feel like I had a lot of things that I want to talk about, and then all of a sudden I've caught up. Oh, my manga, like my other readings. So I think what happened was I was having such a good time with One Piece that I wanted to have a good time with other things. I was so curious. I was just as curious as a cat. And in that curiosity, I started like probably what is for me too many series. So I started Death Note and Spy Family and Berserk, and I need to pare it down. I also started reading in January. I had a little more time off. I'm a school teacher, and I teach math and science actually. And so, you know, although sometimes I talk a little bit about my reading with my students, really y'all are my people. I talk about all my thoughts, or a lot of them, with y'all. And so as a school teacher in January, I had more time off because of certain holidays and bad weather days and stuff. So I felt like I had a little more time to actually read. So I read. and then I was like, I ought to get to a place where I can kind of have a natural stopping point so I can talk about all the things that I'm reading. And then like manga and otherwise, like I need to sort of wrap it up. And so I did that with all of the manga series, Death Note, Spy Family, Berserk. And then now that I've done that, I realized that I've been away from One Piece for like a couple of weeks actually. And I was like, I miss it. And it's like, I kind of faintly miss it. Like I miss the ghost of One Piece. But once we're reunited, I was like, oh, I really missed it. I really, really missed it. And so let's actually get into it. So one of the things, and I really need to pare down some of my manga reading. So one of the things I have really come to love is the chapter right after the end of an arc, because you get to see everyone be on the ship together. I think that's when we see the most like familial bonds, like family relationships. I'm gonna sneeze. Whew. All right, so I just love like when the characters are acting like siblings and when they're acting silly with one another, when they're joking with one another. And that's where it most feels familiar to Bill Watterson of Calvin and Hobbes's art style and humor and stuff. It's just like when they're just being kind of like bickering, arguing, or just being silly with one another. I love it. I love it so much. So, oh yeah, like they, so like at the beginning of this weird in-between arc, Zoro and Sanji are like, they get into a battle as to who can bring back the biggest, most heaviest kilos of meat. And even I think Zoro is like, Sanji's like, whoever kills the biggest kilos, like the most kilos, is gonna win. It's like, what is this? And then Zoro is like, why not tons? So they just leave the ship, and Nami and Usopp are left on the ship, Nami and Usopp. And she was like, or not she, actually, Usopp looks over to Nami and he's like, you're useless. And Nami's like, same to you, which is just so like sibling-esque. And I just, I thought it was so funny. It really is giving me like Gulliver's Travels type of vibe, that they're on this island and, they're on the next island and it's a garden. They're like, it's called the Little Garden for a reason. It's a little garden to certain people on the island. And then we meet two giants. Two giants that have been fighting forever, and I liked it. So what is it, Bragi and Dory? I've been thinking quite a bit about these giants, mostly to contextualize the world. I mean, the world literally grew. You know, it's like we've seen these large creatures, you know, animals, magical creatures. We saw the dinosaurs, and those were huge. And then it's like we actually see the growth of the world. We see human beings that are massive, you know, and I feel like he's just like Oda's sort of wink, wink, nudge, nudging his readers, saying like, I can do anything. You know, my world is magical, and I can do anything. And so I've just been considering and contemplating these giants, and what that means to to Luffy and his crew, because now there's like these things, these people that are just totally different, you know, different than who they are. And we've met different people, but I feel like it's magic mixed with a circus kind of feeling sometimes, or, you know, like the Baratier, it's like they were just, you know, warriors who settled down doing something different. Or when we had, you know, we had the old man and his whale, you know, it's just like they're actual people, but they just maybe have a little bit of a different background or take. Now this is something totally different. In my opinion, it's like we haven't seen this before. At least I don't think so. And so not only do we have this fruit that gives people magical powers and these incredible places, but now we have magical people. And I don't know if it's the first time we've seen this exactly in One Piece, but to me it kind of hit home in this arc, at least the beginning of it, just how magical the place, you know, this place is. So we meet, let's think. Oh yeah, this is great. So a dinosaur eats Luffy, and then one of the giants cuts off the dinosaur's head, and as Luffy was going down the esophagus of the dinosaur, the head pops off, and then Luffy pops out. It just, again, it's sort of got this nod to like classic Warner Brothers, is that right? Warner Brothers, like cartoons like Tom and Jerry, just like the absolute absurdity and silliness of it all, which I loved. So we meet Dory and Bragi, and they've been fighting each other for like years, for years and years and years. And what's funny is that it also is talking about honor. And I think in this arc you really get to see the importance of honor to everybody, to all involved. Oh, Usopp is really into it. Usopp is like really like, he's like, this is my goal, to be a brave warrior of the sea. I want to be a man of honor like these guys, you know, the giants that are fighting. And so, you know, he's like, I want honor and glory. And then one of the giants says, you see, well, you know, is that so? Har, 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 is that so? And then he's like, you see, our lives are longer than yours. Our desire to die with honor is greater too. Material things, even life, all fade in the end. But as warriors, if we die with honor, our deaths can be glorious. And that honor will be the eternal treasure of our homeland. So, you know, it's going back to themes that we've talked about so much in One Piece so far, about what is treasure, what does that mean, why is it different for every person. I love it so much. Like, I love these questions, I love these thoughts, and I really loved how, you know, it really reminds me of biblical values, like Christian values. You know, do not store up your treasures here on earth, but store them up in heaven. And, you know, it's like not necessarily like do good, but, you know, we shouldn't be so focused on earthly things, because there is a life beyond this earth. And in a lot of ways, they're doing the same thing. It's like, you know, one's character, or the character of honor, is so much more weighty than earthly treasures, because all of that can fade, but then one's character is what can last eternally. You could be remembered as a person who was honorable, or that had high moral character, or that, you know, for one reason or another. And I hadn't thought about that before, you know, and so I thought that was really thought-provoking. It was really profound, and in a lot of ways it sort of hearkened to Christian values that I've heard about, known, I've heard preached before, but it was really interesting to see it put in this way. And I know that honor in Japanese society and culture is a whole thing on its own. I was going to say beast, but that's really not the right like metaphorical term, but it's like a whole all-encompassing thing to their culture, to their values as a society, that honor is incredibly important to the Japanese. And so it's really cool to see that all kind of tie in, but the way that he said it, and the way that it's tied in with treasure, I love that. I just thought about that and I was like, that is beautiful. We also meet Mr. 3, the agent, an agent for Baroque Works, Agent 3, and we also meet Miss Golden Week. Is that like golden? Is it kind of like Goldilocks? Golden Week. And I actually just more had to a moment. I don't know why, but I keep on thinking Andy Warhol vibes for Mr. 3. I don't know, but he has like a 3 in his hair. I love all like the plays on a 3. So it's 3 in his hair, 3 in his cup. I love it all. And then Miss Golden Week, I love her hat. Like, someone pointed out to me that sometimes Oda's female characters, they can kind of start looking homogenous. There's like not a lot of differentiation or difference between the characters. And I can see that. Sometimes I'm like, who is that again? And like I have to sort of reorient myself or wait for their name to be mentioned to be like, oh yeah. And I know the colored version, like the version with color of One Piece really helps with that, because I know Nami has like bright red hair or bright orange hair in the colored versions. So I get that, which is actually how that came about. Like, it's really easy to differentiate who is who in the colored version versus the black and white. But I thought Miss Golden Week is so different looking than the other characters that we've seen so far. And I really like that. I just like her. I like the circles on her cheek and her big eyes. And the braids in her hair and her like safari hat. I just really like her character design, at least of her face, and I found it really compelling and really different from what we've seen before. Oh, and then where I stopped was that after this conversation of honor, one of the giants is drinking ale and it explodes. Like it is contaminated and it explodes. And Luffy makes a really good point, saying that it wouldn't have been the giant that he was fighting because that was a nasty trick. So the other giant wouldn't have tricked his competitor, because that would be not honorable. That would be of dishonor. And so I thought, oh, that's so interesting. So it's like when you have such a wonderful character, when you are trusted and when you are fighting for honor, when something sketchy happens, like you're kind of in the clear because you are to be trusted with your actions. So I really love that. And then, of course, the giant is angry and he's like, deceivers of you all, what is happening? And then him and Luffy start to fight. And then I was like, wait, I have so much to talk about. I need to sit down and talk to you now, because I must know. I must talk to my people about this so I don't lose it. Because, sometimes my brain is so full. Things go in and then they go away and they are lost to the ether of, I don't know, wherever thoughts go when they are not fully formed and put into words. I guess they just fade. I don't know. So anyways, I just wanted to talk to you all about that and how excited I am about moving forward and being back with you all. It's been great. But I have to go. So I will come back when I have something. I will check in again when I have some more to say about what's going on, and I'll see you in a bit. All right, so I'm back and I'm a little bit low energy today. Maybe my energy will perk up as I get talking. So just so you all know where I'm at. I feel emotional just thinking about it. Felt really, really emotional at the end of this little garden arc. I was reading this morning. I was reading One Piece this morning. I feel like my eyes are stinging because I'm just feeling emotional about it. I was reading One Piece this morning, and as you all know, and I think I've mentioned in the earlier clip, that I have been taking these detours from One Piece. And so it's like coming home when I read One Piece. But there's also this wonderful, lighthearted, but not deceivingly lighthearted. It's a nice balance between feeling the heaviness of some of the themes and the lightheartedness of the jokes and sometimes the absurdity of the world that makes me feel like One Piece is coming home. And I was sinking into like a good reading session, like 7 or 8 or 9 chapters this morning. I was like sinking into that reading, and I was like, wow, I really, really missed this world, these characters, these themes. And then when I got to like the end of the arc, I started to feel really, really, really emotional. So actually, I think I'm not going to go through like storyline and pick out the things that I want to say. Who knows, I might end up doing that, but I actually have themes and concepts and characters that I want to talk about. So I think it might actually work better, which I started kind of at the beginning. The first clip, I talked more about themes, which I think might actually work better for these One Piece videos, talking about the plot, but more through the characters and through the themes. So we get Mr. 3, and we have Mr. 3 and a couple of other of the Baroque Works who are setting off to kill the Straw Hats. And it's really cool to see them call the group the Straw Hats, even though it's really Luffy's straw hat that matters the most. So, it's just cool that they're getting that nickname, and I feel like it's really all coming together as they are a team. And I noticed that you all are talking about like honorary straw hats and just how cool that is. And so I just really love that. But they get to the island, and I was kind of amazed and impressed by the creativity that Mr. 3, his fighting, the way he fights, like his power, for a lack of a better term, is candle wax. And he's like got this candelabra, like he fires with wax and candelabra, and then it kind of came together that the 3 on his head is like the wick of a candle. And I'm like, oh, that's super creative. And so he is able to kind of capture Nami and Zoro and Princess Vivi, or Vivi, and they're all caught, and he's like making it really clear that they're going to turn into wax sculptures. And our giants are down for the count. They're stuck in candle wax, and it reminds me of like the timer is on, the timer is set with the candle wax. And I feel like you see that with like maybe a sand pit filling up, or somebody sinking in a sand hole, and they're like, get me out, and you only have so much time. And so like the clock is set. I mean, it's done in a bunch of different ways, right? Like the TV show 24 is all about counting down the hours to something. So I mean, it's not like it's never been done before, but I've never seen it done in a way where candle wax is used. And I really thought that was cool and really enjoyable. Like a new take, an absurdist take on it all. And it also kind of has the mimicking of like somebody who has freezing powers. But, Oda's not going to just freeze somebody and turn them into like an ice cube. Instead, he's going to turn them into a wax sculpture. And I just really liked that. I also, for whatever reason, and oh gosh, y'all are really getting my stream of consciousness right now. But like, I really... there was like the candle wax in particular. I don't know why, but it reminded me of Beauty and the Beast. And, one of the characters is a candlestick, and just, his like, be our guest, put your service to the test. And I mean, it's not that, but just like how the world of Beauty and the Beast in the Disney movie comes alive when he's singing that song, and there's, they're making it this beautiful magical servitude moment to Belle, and trying to make her feel welcome. It's kind of like that, but flipped on its head, because now candle wax is being used to freeze people, essentially, or waxify, statuize people. Yeah, wow, get it together, rein it in, girl. So while Zoro is stuck in candle wax, I feel like we see Zoro, like we see this side of Zoro that is just awesome. I think that this was one of the first times that, well, I don't know if it's like one of the first times, but this time, this arc in particular, and the storyline of Zoro really came alive for me in a way that I feel like it hasn't before. Like, I feel like Zoro just went up like a notch. A notch in my heart, okay? Because the candle wax is, his feet are stuck in candle wax. And he knows that the time is running out. And, he's very deadpan about the whole thing. He's snarky, but with this like deadpan flat delivery kind of humor. And on the one hand, he's like, let me cut off my legs so I can actually fight. And on the other hand, he is like saying, I'm going to be frozen in like at least a really cool position. It was just hilarious and like I don't know, like the right delivery for this character. I loved it. And even Nabi's like, you're not taking this seriously. And he's just like, you'll want to thank me later. You should strike a cool pose. Like, you'll want to be frozen for all eternity and at least looking cool. And I love that. And, he was like, I'm going to cut off my legs so I can fight. And, people were like, that's dumb. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And he's like, it's not dumb. It's so I can fight, guys. Like, come on now. And I feel like it was like Chef Zeph all over again, like inspiration from Chef Zeph, but like a twist on that, cutting off your own leg to serve a bigger purpose. I was like, oh my gosh, y'all. Oh my gosh. So again, Zoro grew in my estimation and I just ate it all up. So this whole time, we have this Miss Golden Week. She's kind of there. We don't really know what she does. And again, you're seeing like themes, concepts that I think Oda really enjoys. Like you were seeing what his bread and butter is. And I think like hypnosis or like maybe he just uses hypnosis as a vehicle to explore like changing somebody, like the change of one's heart or their direction, to get someone to change in like basically a very quick way. You see this in television shows when like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, there's an episode where it's like, they actually do this a couple of different times, but like whatever somebody says comes true. So somebody might flippantly say like, someone might flippantly say like, why don't you just go marry him? And all of a sudden, two characters like Buffy and Spike, who would never, ever, 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 ever be in love with well, I don't know. Anyways, two characters who would never love each other, at least in that moment, are like all of a sudden heart eyes for each other. And so you see Oda kind of use this trick, like let's explore what would happen if this was the case, or if someone changed in just a moment. And so, and it's all like character revealing and all of that. So we find out that Miss Golden Week is she can paint symbols that are of hypnosis, like she can hypnotize people basically. And it's so funny because of course our sweet Luffy is the one that gets hypnotized because, and as his friends point out, like he is weak of spirit, like he's got a weak mind. He's got such a big heart. So many of you have pointed out how emotionally intelligent Luffy is. Absolutely. He is one of the most emotionally intelligent characters in all of One Piece. Like he can see when someone is suffering and empathize and switch on a dime and like really like be with them and want to do something. So it's like he's got this heart of gold and this well of empathy, but he is not a bright young man. He's kind of simple-minded. And like, I don't know, because I'm raising children, we don't use the word stupid. Like we just don't, like it's a bad word in my household because I have little kids, and I just don't want them to ever say that about themselves. Y'all are getting like my personal take on things. Like I just don't want them to say that about themselves or to ever get that in their head. Or talk down to themselves in that way. And so we've just made it like a bad word in my house. And so I would never call Luffy that, but he is definitely like simple. It's like he cannot resist a hypnosis at all. And, it's, and on the one hand, that serves him so well. And on the other hand, I think you know, he's susceptible to certain things. And so him being susceptible to hypnosis was kind of hilarious, you know. You see things like turn on a dime. You see his personality, or like his beliefs turn on a dime. He wants to save his friends, and then he doesn't want to save his friends. And he wants to do, you know, he wants to like fight, and then all of a sudden he's laughing, you know, and you see that, and it's so entertaining. It's such a good source of entertainment. And I just really loved those moments because, you know, it reveals something about Luffy's personality and how he's just not great at holding up against mental manipulation. He cannot hold up against mental manipulation, and yet he has like the biggest heart ever. Usopp is really coming into his own, and he's really coming to grow on me because like he as so many of you pointed out, he's like a regular guy. He's just he doesn't have these superpowers, and sometimes he's a bit of a coward, and sometimes his ideas are bigger than himself or what he can execute. But at some points in this story, like, he's the only man left. He's the only man standing left. Like, he doesn't get captured or hypnotized. He's there amid the battle, because at some point I realized, I was like, where's Sanji in all of this? Like, Sanji is just missing. But Usopp is not missing. Like, he is there and he is in it. And a lot of times he just, like, wants to be a brave warrior. He wants to be known as somebody with like gumption and spirit, you know? And it's like, oh my gosh, I love that so much. And what do you know? Like, it's him and Booger guy, you know, Booger bomb guy, you know, him. They're fighting, and, you know, Usopp is like dodging his bullets and figuring things out, and he's also like throwing his own, you know, bullets and bombs at Booger Boy. And like, at one point it's just like he throws a pepper, but we don't know that, you know, he's just like, I'm tossing something explosive at you to Booger Man. And then he's like, and guess what? I am a liar, and so I lied. Ha 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 ha. It is actually a pepper that will burn your throat when you eat it. And that was just great. And so you see his skills of lying come to fruition and actually use it for good. And it's like it all kind of, you know, is able to come together. And I just love that Usopp tries. Like, he tries, and sometimes he knows when his trying has taken him far enough and he needs to run away, which is totally valid, but he always, in one form or another, picks himself up and dusts himself off and tries. And I just love that. I love that about him. So about the time when I was wondering, where the heck is Sanji in all of this? Like, let's be real, Sanji is just missing in action. Where the heck is he? I'm like, what is going on? That Sanji shows up, and he sees like a little spread, and he is just, well, at first he goes and he's like, I wonder where Nami and Vivi is. Like, where are they? And then he gets distracted and decides to enjoy some tea at a table set before him, and he sees this snail phone, which again, I just, you know, having read in one of the SBSs, this is a little side tangent as I talk about Sanji, but having read that Oda, you know, at first I was like, does he have this love for animals? Like, what is it with him and these like creatures? Because they're heavily featured in One Piece. And, you know, he was clear in one of the SBSs that, and maybe it'll develop, maybe his thinking or his answering of why do I draw animals or creatures will develop as the story goes on. But for me right now, in the chapter that I am right now, so far all I know is that he just really enjoys drawing animals. And I love that. I love that. Like, it's such a cool, magical, and interesting part of the world. And to see all the characters, all the even animal characters, like, come about and play an integral role. And so here we have it again. So Sanji's sitting down to tea. Little does he know that it's the enemy's tea set up. And he sees like a snail phone. And I was like, a snail phone? I love that. I want a snail phone. Like, I am not I don't buy things for like memorabilia. I don't have a lot of like memorabilia or anything. But you know what I want? I want that freaking snail phone. Like I want that. Like I want it in my background. I don't know why. It's just calling to me. Maybe because we just studied snails in my class, but it is calling to me. I love it so much. So he gets on the phone and all of a sudden he's talking to Mr. Zero. And he's talking to Mr. Zero as one of the Baroque Works fellows. And so we're getting that thing where you're like not seeing the villain's face, which actually works so well to build the suspense and to, I think it kind of builds their evilness, like not just the suspense, but I feel like the longer it takes to see their face, the more evil they are. And so, we have Mr. Zero and he's like, is everything taken care of? And Sanji's like, oh yeah, everything's taken care of. Those Straw Hat fellows are gone. The Straw Hat teams are obliterated. We're good. And of course, Mr. Zero doesn't know that he's talking to a Straw Hat himself. So, he ends up sending, I think, some creatures out, probably doing some of his Baroque work creatures to check on the situation. And what do you know? They deliver, or Sanji takes something that is actually really important. So Sanji he is able to obtain through both the interaction and the birds, I think, that Mr. Zero sends, he's able to get the eternal pose for the Alabasta. I am so excited. So, because at this point, Princess Vivi can't go home because the world of One Piece and the galaxy, it's just it's hard to travel because compasses don't work, and so you need, y'all know, we need log poses, we need eternal poses, we need the things to help guide our way. So I was like, oh, Sanji getting to become an integral part in this story and like kind of saving the day. Sanji's really grown on me too, and I don't know, the conversation between him and Mr. Zero was good and like pushed the plot forward, and I liked that. And we see Miss All Sunday with Mr. Zero, and it was good to see. Oh, and then the telephone call gets intercepted. It's intercepted by the Marines, and on the Marines we have the double cigar dude, and I forget her name. The girl who resembles Zoro's friend who passed away from his past. Like, we get the Marines and we see people we haven't seen in a long time, and they had intercepted the call between Mr. Zero and Sanji, but Mr. Zero didn't know it was Sanji. So I was like, what? So it's so cool because, you kind of, I don't know, like as you're going along, at least as I'm going along, I kind of forget about some people and I forget what is happening. And then I realize that, the worlds are colliding. Just like one of my favorite moments was when Buggy shows up again, because it's like we had been following him in the cover art story, the cover stories, and then all of a sudden he shows up in like the main story, and I was like, haha, like it's so satisfying. Like, why is it so satisfying? I don't know. It probably just shows my investment in it all. So in the whole story. So I did want to say that I think the biggest and probably let me see. I did want to say, I was making sure I didn't like miss any of my notes. I think this is the last thing, and like I think the biggest thing. But I realized that between Bragi and Dory, their fight, it really kind of, the whole arc sets it up that they have been fighting for 100 years and they're fighting for honor. And then one of our giants gets explosive ale in him, and the other one is able to win. And, there was this meddling of a 100-year-long fight, which I feel like maybe the European or even the American version of like 100-year fight or battle is like people are so stubborn and angry and petty that they've let 100 years pass in this fight that they can't get over it. Like, that's one take on it, right? And it's just like, well, if you would have just cleared up, or, or if you just would have been humble and put your pride aside, then you could have worked this all out. Oh, I gotta change the battery. I feel like I've seen that version of a 100-year fight or a long-standing argument. I've heard that version forever, it seems like. I know that version of a story. This is the story of two people who are fighting for honor, but there is a pleasure in the fight, and no one, do not get involved because, there is, I don't know, there is something about the fact that they're always at a draw, that there's always a tie between the two giants, and that they are of equal match, and it's something that is personal to them, in which they're constantly going to be getting at. And there's no like malice or ill will. It's something that, again, I don't think that my particular culture, or maybe my knowledge of literature, I don't think I've seen it as much. It's like, I don't know, like, the only thing I could think of it as is like a sport, and maybe racing, a running race. And it's like two little kids running at a running race, or guys playing basketball. And it's like you do it, there is competition, but you do it for the pleasure of the competition. And, there's no, maybe the Great British Bake Off is like the closest I can get to it. It's like there's no prize at the end except for bragging rights, the honor of winning. And I guess now, having thought about it, like really setting some time aside to think about it, I'm like, yeah, we see it. It's just not, there's always a reward. There seems to be always a monetary or some kind of reward attached, at least in like in Americanized culture. There's always a reward attached to winning. But instead, it's like the reward is the honor of winning. So anyways, my point is that the Straw Hat crew, Luffy in particular, he really empathizes with that. He understands it. He gets it. He doesn't want to meddle. There is, again, I don't know if it's a cultural thing, but there's always like, in these types of stories, there's this peacemaker. Let's just make peace so that everybody can get along. But it's like, well, what if it's not about peace? It's really about it's about the fight. It's about the competition. It's about having someone to spar with. And, maybe intellectual competitions, it's like that. It's like there is no winner or loser. We want to spar, and it's in that sparring, and that something special lies. And you can tell that Luffy understands. And, at one point in the story, he's like, why there's no honor in messing with another person's battle, like with another person's fight. Like, why are you messing this up? These guys have been fighting for 100 years, and why would you mess with that? And it's the bad guys who are messing with that, who are meddling with that, who don't care that this fight has been so long standing and it's not their fight to meddle with. But, Luffy understands that. And the Straw Hats understand that. And it just is like, it really hit home for me that this story, in a lot of ways, it's about friendship. It's about our own internal desires. It's about what makes us us. Like, there are things that drive me that is going to be different from the person that I'm sitting next to. What drives you? What are your insides made up of? What is your character made up of? But this was more like about empathy. And I was like, the good guys have empathy. The good guys don't want to mess with something that is not theirs to mess with. And yet, the bad guys are the ones that don't have empathy, that are unwilling to let things go, that meddle. And I was like, that's super interesting. That's super interesting. And so it's like the good guys have empathy, and the bad guys lack a sense of empathy. And I really thought that was like awesome and deep. And then I feel like Dory and Froggy become honorary Straw Hats because they're like, you know, no one's gonna mess with our straw hats, and they're so grateful to them. And now, you know, the straw hats are moving on to the next island, and this massive fish is in the way, and Dory and Bragi make sure that the straw hats can, you know, get on their way without being eaten alive. And there was just, that's what really got me. It was like we have the merry-go in the middle and our giants on the sides. There's something super magical about the scale and the way Oda uses scale with large creatures and small creatures and giants and all of that kind of stuff. And I could cry right now. And I don't know, there was just something really magical about seeing the giants stand there and watching the merry-go go, like go sail on his way, watch the merry-go sail on her way, and just, you know, our crew is there, and they're kind of back in their, I don't know, their banter, you know, Sanji and Zoro are back arguing, and they're the giants, and the giants have decided that, you know, that the Straw Hats are their friends, and that they want the Straw Hats to succeed on their mission, and they are like on their team to make that happen. I don't know why that really got me. I just felt so invested and emotional, and I felt like, I don't know, I feel like I have these moments where I'm like, I get it. I get why One Piece has such a fandom and such a love, you know, out there. And that there are so many people that love this. And then, you know, there's sometimes I'm a little bit wondering, like, am I getting it? You know, am I getting what everybody else is getting? And I was like, I felt like, without anyone having to tell me, like, I'm getting it. Like, I'm getting it because I saw them, and I don't know, there was just like a je ne sais quoi, a magic that I couldn't quite put my finger on, that I just loved. I loved about the Little Garden arc. And I'm going to hold this arc really special in my heart because I loved our giants. I love the world. I love that the world is slowly like a little flower, like opening up and blooming right in front of my eyes. I love the absurdity. I love the creativity. I love the characters. And most of all, I love what it stands for, because, you know, if it came to empathy versus hard-heartedness, like, I will choose empathy every single time. And I feel like that is such a beautiful message to put out in the world. That is such a beautiful idea to expand upon. And I just love it. Oh my gosh, I love it so much. So that is it for me. Oh my gosh, I've rambled and rambled and rambled. That's it from me. If you made it to the end, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. If you're not yet subscribed, please do so. I would love to have you, from me to you. And if you're here and already subscribed, I thank you so much. But most of all, just thank you so much for your time and listening to me ramble on. I really appreciate it. And maybe I'm just feeling emotional. I will see you all in my next one. Bye!